I'm so excited to be here. Casper and I have known each other for a few years, and I'm delighted to have our professional paths crossing again. Casper ter Kuile is the author of The Power of Ritual, and as many of you are probably aware, the co-host of the award-winning podcast, Harry Potter and the Sacred Text. He is a Ministry Innovation Fellow at Harvard Divinity School and the co-founder of the Sacred Design Lab, a research and design consultancy working to create a culture of belonging and becoming. Casper co-authored the paper How We Gather, and his work has been featured in the New York Times, Vice, The Atlantic, and the Washington Post. He holds Masters of Divinity and Public Policy from Harvard University. And before moving to the US, he co-founded the Campaign Boot Camp and the UK Youth Climate Coalition to train and mobilize young activists. And Casper is now back here in Brooklyn, New York with his husband. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thank you, Aline. Thanks everyone for being here. It's such a pleasure to be together. I hope that you have a cup of tea or coffee, some water, whatever you need to feel comfortable. If you're in a European time zone, you might want to lean into that cocktail, whatever is good for you to feel good over this next hour or so. I really hope it'll be both a rejuvenating, but also a relaxing experience. So what I'm planning is we're going to create a ritual calendar together, or a ritual life planner. So we're not going to focus on one specific ritual, but we're going to make a calendar to hold all the meaningful moments of our year. And so we'll be drawing on religious and spiritual holidays, of course, but also being inspired by moments with nature, family traditions, sporting and cultural moments, all sorts of goodies. So wherever you are on the Jewish spectrum, or even beyond, you are so welcome here, and we'll be creating something that's purposely tailored for you. Eileen, I think you, or whoever's the host, Rebecca, you're now the host, so you might still need to make me the host so I can run the small groups, because we are going to, I'll start off doing a little teaching and a little sharing of information, and then we'll do a kind of solo reflection where I'll invite you to remember a meaningful moment in your own life. And then I'm going to invite you into some breakout groups. And some of us love those. If you're an extrovert like me, some of us are more hesitant. Let me invite you to lean into it as much as you're comfortable doing today. It is not just fun to meet new folks, but it's also a really lovely way in which to inspire yourself with other people's ritual lives. So it's a practical, helpful thing if you can. Totally fine if you don't want to. You can just hang back. You won't be forced to do anything you don't want to. So I will make a start. And if you've had anything like the day I'm having, you might just want to join me in a couple of deep breaths. So I'm just going to make myself comfortable, and I'll just lead us through a series of 3 breaths, one of letting go where we've just been, one of arriving here where we are in this shared moment, and then one to set an intention for our shared hour together. So if you're comfortable, you can open your heart and close your eyes. Just take a deep breath in. And just let go the morning or the day you've had so far, knowing you can return to it in just a minute, but setting it aside for now. And then a second deep breath in. To arrive in this moment, got 60-something folks all joining us from around the world to be together, to explore our ritual lives. And then a final breath to set an intention for yourself over this next hour. So simple, but it feels so good. I hope that felt good for you. I always find myself a little bit rejuvenated. Wonderful stuff. So thanks to everyone who's added to the chat box where you're calling in from. If you are just joining us, please do add that. It's always so lovely to know where you are. So as Rebecca was saying, my name is Casper ter Kuile, and I grew up in the UK in a very ritual-filled house. I wasn't raised in a religious household, but I went to a Waldorf school, or a Steiner school, if some of you are familiar with Waldorf education. And so there was a lot of dancing around the maypole, and we would go and sing to cattle at Christmas time, literally bringing all the carol books, walking around the farm, singing to the pigs, singing to the cows. And I didn't really realize until I was a young adult how unusual my life had been. And certainly once I started to tell people about, digging up the cow horns that had been dug full of cow dung the year before by the class above us, to then go and like moisturize with manure the fields of the school garden. That doesn't happen to every kid, apparently, but it was a wonderful way in which I felt very grounded in the place that I lived and in the family that I grew up in. So I will be drawing on a lot of memories. And I want to say up front, some of us have a lot of joyful memories. Some of us have more painful ones. So I invite you to navigate this as much as you will in terms of where you want to place your memories. It might be back in childhood. It might be more recently, could be young adulthood. Wherever the source of joy is in your life, I encourage you to lean into those. But I've ended up caring a lot about ritual, and I want to tell you a little bit about why. I think in the kind of dominant cultural context of the West, we've lost a lot of our ritual life. And that leaves us disconnected from the place that we live in, from the people who are important to us, and even from a sense of story, often, of being part of something bigger than ourselves. And so rituals are often an invitation to refocus our awareness and our attention to the things that give us meaning and connection and joy. I often think about, the things we ritualize are often the things that make life worth living. And if we don't have a rich ritual life, it can feel like life is just kind of happening to us, rather than us being able to set intentions about where we want to pay attention. Especially, I think, during these COVID months, where at the beginning it felt like one day bled into another, and it was like, is it Tuesday? Is it Saturday? I definitely know what day it is now because work is back. But the thing that feels like the heaviness to me now is we just don't know when it's going to end, and we don't know how it's going to end. And so finding some way to mark time in a regular way is more important than ever for me. And I hope that resonates in some way for you. And again, a ritual calendar can give us that structure in time. So we're going to create a ritual calendar, and you might want to use it just, for yourself. You might want to think about the ritual calendar for your family, or you might want to think about it for your community or even a work team. So you can lean into whatever way you want to do that is helpful. And I'll just show you a little kind of sneak peek of what we'll end up with. So in a moment, I'll share my screen, and you can see this kind of very simply drawn calendar shape. There's 12 months. They're labeled on the outside in gray. And then in each month, there are significant moments in my ritual life. Everything from Halloween in October, you can see. And if you like to doodle and draw, you're going to be very welcome to do that. To the, gosh, what else is in that? Remembrance Sunday in England is a big moment when everyone wears poppies. So this will just give you a little bit of a sense of what you're working towards in our hour together. So rituals are, they're not just, one of the things that feels important to say is they're not just decorative. It's not just something that we celebrate because it's fun or because it's joyful, although it is, and they are, but rituals form us. We choose to celebrate rituals that we believe can shape us to become the kind of people that we want to be. So rituals embody values. They embody stories. One of the ways I like to think about defining ritual is that they make the invisible visible. So they give shape and structure and smell and taste and all sorts of things that we can touch and feel and see. They make those values, or they make those memories, those connections visible. And that's a very powerful thing. Joseph Campbell, the great mythologist, talks about rituals kind of embodying a myth. I'll put a little quote in the chat box. He describes rituals as enacting a myth, and that when we celebrate a ritual, we are reparticipating in that myth. We're retelling the story. And as we heard from Eileen, doing that at the Passover is the most obvious example of that. but it happens in all sorts of ways. Maybe if there's a dish that we cook that our grandmother always made, or maybe there's a place that we go that's important in our family's history, that we re-embody those stories in some way, and that we re-participate in those myths. So all of that is both interesting, but it's also important for us to then really think about what kind of rituals do we want to celebrate? And is that ritual helping us to lift up the stories that we want to lift up? Is that ritual helping us become the kind of person that we want to grow into? Because some of us might have to navigate rituals that have a complicated history, where there's some elements that are really important to us, but maybe some elements that theologically might not feel right, culturally might not feel right, whatever it is, we might have to reclaim or re-navigate some of those big moments. So we'll think about that a little bit today as well. One final quote just that I like as well is from Dacher Keltner, who's the lead scientist at the Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley Greater Good Science Center. And he very sweetly wrote the introduction to my book. And he talks about rituals as patterned, repeated ways in which we enact moral emotions. And again, this is another way of thinking that rituals make visible the invisible. So things like bliss, things like compassion, gratitude. So as we think about our ritual calendar, we also might want to do a little analysis, as we will at the end, to think about what are the rituals across time pointing us toward. Maybe a lot of them are focused on us, and we might need some rituals that help us focus on the other. There might be a lot of rituals that focus on gratitude. Maybe we need a few more rituals that help us focus on courage. Whatever it is, that's another way of just thinking about how our ritual life looks. So that's just a few words on rituals themselves, but we should also say something about why they matter in time. Now, many of you have a rich and fulfilling religious and spiritual Jewish life already, so this is something that's very familiar, but it's helpful, I think, to just remind ourselves why we have a calendar, why we travel through time over and over again. The first thing I think is it's a great rebuttal to this sense of endless progress and having to achieve more and more and more, this kind of line, this linear sense of time where we're always moving forward, because a calendar is inherently circular. So it's a different perception of time in which we don't always have to grow or be better or, the exhausting narratives that we live in within a capitalist system. There's an opportunity, I think, to trace through time differently. And Joan Chittister is a wonderful Benedictine nun in her book, The Liturgical Year, talks about the process of living a liturgical calendar or a ritual calendar as a process of spiritual ripening. And I just adore that, that idea that we are fruit on the vine, and with every year that we pass through these rituals, that we grow spiritually riper. I also think it's a nice counter-ageist message in there, that these rituals, that we don't experience them just for what they are in this moment, but they become a portal to every celebration that we've had throughout our lives, and maybe even beyond our own lives, that we're connected through time. And so it's a wonderful way of just completely changing the way in which we think about time. And that process of living in a rhythm, of living in a liturgical year or living in a ritual year, John O'Donoghue, the great Irish poet, who famously, I love him for many, many reasons, his books are wonderful, but he famously said, the second best thing I ever did was to become a Catholic priest, and then the best thing I ever did was to leave the priesthood, which gives you a sense of his kind of like deeply spiritual, but also slightly renegade vibes, which is very much up my street. And he said that to be in rhythm with one's nature is to be in rhythm with God. And just that sense of reconnecting with a holy rhythm, I think, is a wonderful way of what it means to live a spiritually rich life. That it doesn't have to be necessarily about large pilgrimages or great achievements, but it's about living the discipline, really, of a ritual life. So with all of that, I hope that just stimulates some imagination for you and gives you some new pathways into thinking about ritual. But I want to start us off by just inviting you in a moment to think for yourself back to a ritual moment that brought you great joy. And it might be, as I said, a moment from your early childhood. It might be a moment much more recently with friends or other loved ones. It might be something that you haven't thought of in some time. And that's totally fine. And we're going to stay in this memory for just a minute or two, and I'll give you some prompts. So for the moment, if you're looking at your screen or if you've been writing down, I'm just going to invite you to step away. And if you're comfortable, just to close your eyes as I just give you a couple of prompts as we enter into this time of memory. So I want you to think back to a specific celebration or a ritual that you love. Somehow you know this is a special time where you felt great joy. I want you to just look around in your memory, in your mind's eye. Where are you? What can you see? Are you outside or inside? Are you alone? Or who are you with? Look at their faces if you can. What are people wearing? What are you doing together? Are you singing? Are you quiet? Are you eating? Making things? Traveling? What's the weather like? But most importantly, what can you feel? How does this make you feel? What about it do you love? Just stay in this memory for another 10, 20 seconds or so. Take one more look around and prepare to leave this memory and come back to us in this Zoom room when you're ready. And so in a moment, Rebecca is going to invite us into some small groups. And what I'm hoping that you can share, you'll be with maybe 2, 3 other folks. You'll each have just over 2 minutes to share just something about this ritual memory, this celebration, and particularly what it made you feel. And I really hope this is a place in which everyone can just share, so we won't have too much back and forth as someone's sharing. So you can really embody the role of listener when you're listening and embody the role of storyteller when you're sharing. And we'll have 10 minutes in total for the breakout room. And Rebecca will give us an invitation. And if you're willing to join a small group, again, I invite you to lean into that if you can. It's such a joy. Just click accept and you'll be sent into a small group. And if you are hesitant or just want to hang out here, you can just stay here and we'll keep quiet for 10 minutes or so. So it should be a little breakout room and we'll see you in 10 minutes. Wonderful. Thank you, Rebecca.
I'll set a timer so that I can bring them back.
You're the best.
Do it, I
think. And would you just keep an eye that no one is alone in a breakout room, just in case the other 3 folks in the room stayed with us. Thank you so much.
Looks like most of them have at least 2 people who have joined. I guess one of them doesn't yet. Let me see how I can move her.
And you can always move folks from one room to another.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Seamless. The skills,
You know,
the skills.
Right? That's what they pay us the big bucks for, right?
Exactly. And folks, while you're here, just to encourage, or not encourage, to keep you company, I'll just play a little background music and we'll welcome folks back in about 10 minutes and we'll carry on together.
Oh, Deta aqui body chambai, body chambai espinha terra, body chambai salvanha mãe, oh mar, oh mar. Deta aqui body body chambai spianha terra, body chambai salvanha mar, o mar azul, sob mansinho, lua cheia, iluminando caminho, banhar terra de meu, São Vicente pequenino, para me abraçar, me acreditar, mar azul, sob mansinho, lua cheia, iluminando caminho, banhar terra de meu, São Vicente pequenino, para me abraçar, me acreditar. Ano passado, tempo correr, sol e a lua sair, a minha ser na terra nós, o mar, o mar. Ano passado, tempo correr, sol e a lua sair, a minha ser na terra nós, o mar azul, sob mansinho, lua cheia, iluminando caminho, banhar terra de meu, São Vicente pequenino, para me abraçar, me acreditar, mar azul, sob mansinho, lua cheia, iluminando caminho, banha terra de meu, São Vicente pequenino, para me abraçar.
I'm a new soul, I came to this strange world hoping I could learn a bit about how to give and take. But since I came here, felt the joy and the fear, finding myself making every possible mistake. La 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 la. Strange world, hoping I could learn a bit about what is true and fake. But why all this hate? Try to communicate. Finding trust and love is not always easy to make. La 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 la. This is a happy end, 'cause you don't understand everything you have done. Why is everything so wrong? This is a happy end. Come and give me your hand. I'll take you far away. I'm a new soul. I came to this strange world hoping I could learn a bit about how to give and take. But since I came here, felt the joy and the fear, finding myself making every possible mistake.
So folks, everyone will be coming back in just under 2 minutes. Meanwhile, I've learnt that Rebecca and I both share a deep love for Madonna and her epic tune, Like a Prayer.
Deeply iconic. I may have dressed up as her during her like a virgin phase in my early childhood when I was way too young to be dressing up like Madonna.
It's so funny. I feel like everyone has some sort of Madonna story. I really was first exposed to Madonna during her like Frozen era, like the kimono vibe.
Great.
So I know, right? Strange. This is what happens when you have Dutch parents who are not wildly oriented around pop culture.
Right.
But so that tune and vibe has a special place in my heart. But I also then got really into Madonna in the hung up phase. So there's a lot of good Madonna times. I think we have some folks returning. Welcome back, everyone. Just give everyone another.
Give everybody like a few more seconds. And
yeah.
If you have opinions about Madonna, you can always put those in the chat.
I feel like I need some Madonna-based rituals.
we can talk offline about those if you want. Yeah.
Exactly. Wonderful.
Great.
A great party theme would be Madonna costumes in all the phases.
There's
absolutely.
Famously though, when RuPaul's Drag Race tried that,
I was going to say
it failed abominably. Twice. Didn't it fail twice?
Yeah, the second one was better. I would say the second version was better, but yeah, the first season 8 was rough. Yeah.
Eileen,
I just started watching.
I gotta catch up.
I say, Eileen, we'll do a deep dive on that another time.
I've honestly been, and Rebecca, you've closed the room so that they're
yes,
everybody
should be coming back. Yes.
Beautiful, thank you. I was just talking with a rabbi. Do you know Stephen Phillips, the rabbi?
No.
We wanted to start a new podcast set called "Can I Get an Amen? The Theology of RuPaul's Drag Race."
I will be on as a guest in a heartbeat. I'm sure Amichai will come on.
I was going to say Allison's into it. We've got a potential.
Yeah. Yeah. I think. Yeah.
Eileen, could I just tell you?
Hi, folks. Welcome, everyone.
Okay.
You're back into the whole group. I'm sorry, Mina, where everyone has returned safely. And I hope the small group conversations were stimulating and sweet. I know it's always too little time, but let it just be a reminder of the joy of connecting with one another around these kind of conversations. So what we are going to do now is, I'm sure that in hearing one another's stories, you immediately had 3 or 4 other ideas. So I just want to give you a moment to write those down right now. So just give yourself a little brain flush. Allow yourself just to write down all the ritual moments that you remembered as you heard each other's stories. And then I'll lead you through some more prompts. So this is the time to get out your pen and paper, and at least on one side, write down all the ritual moments that are sparking in your brain that are important to you in your life. Wonderful. I so appreciate all of you busy in the chat, and for those of you who are able to have your videos on, it's such a joy as someone who leads a workshop to be able to see you. So I really appreciate that. And big love to everyone who can't. Totally understand. No stress, no worries. But I appreciate that. So as you've put those ideas that were just fresh in your mind down on paper, what I'm going to invite you to do now is join me in a sort of fast-paced round robin of all sorts of different ritual categories that I hope in each one will stimulate 1 or 2 sweet memories or joyful rituals that you might want to include in your ritual life. So I'm going to list some categories and invite you just to write down what comes to your mind. Not all of these have to appear in your ritual calendar. So this is just an exercise in ritual stimulation, as it were. So I've got about 12 of them. So we'll move through them at quite some pace. And then after that, we'll start putting them into our drawn calendar with the, you can either make a grid if you're circularly challenged, as I often am. My circles often look more like an oval. Whatever you want to do is totally fine. But first, let's come up with some categories. So the first one I want you to think about is the big civic celebrations. If you're in the US, this might include Thanksgiving, 4th of July, Labor Day weekend, Memorial Day, MLK Day. If you're in England, you might think about, as I said, Remembrance Sunday. Hello, Joanne, you're in England, I see. If you're in Germany, it might be Reunification Day. Whatever the kind of big civic celebrations are in the country that you're in, and any traditions or rituals or celebrations that are associated with that are important to you. Maybe it's a place that you go, people that you see, a certain pie that you bake. These things can be big or small. You know, not all of them have to be huge things. They can be a favorite movie that we watch at a certain time of year, and a thing that you're reminded of in your civic celebrations, the shared civic calendar. All right, next up, and this is going to be a big one, religious festivals. Now, I don't want you to feel beholden that you have to add the ones that you know you should. I want you to add the ones that genuinely mean something to you. This is where my inner renegade comes out. So again, the special traditions, the moments, the dishes that you cook, the people that you love. What are some of the moments in the Jewish calendar or beyond in other religious calendars that are important to you? Passover, of course, Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot. Maybe you're in an interfaith household, so you also celebrate Ramadan or Eid or Christmas, Easter. Maybe you've got a little pagan side and there's some Samhain to be celebrated or equinoxes to be marked. Yeah, Rebecca, Kwanzaa. All the big religious moments. And again, we're thinking about moments that happen really probably once a year or a couple times a year. So we could do a whole separate calendar for a week or a month, but we're really thinking on an annual calendar. So lean into those moments that come around. Yes, Iris, Day of the Dead, absolutely. Oh, Joanne, yes, many secular festivals. We'll be talking about those in just a moment. Any other religious festivals or spiritual celebrations that are important to you, your household, your community? And you're absolutely, great question, Dinah. Absolutely welcome to include ones that you might want to lean into, but don't yet have, that you don't have on your calendar yet. This is a great moment to start thinking about celebrations you want to add or include. Absolutely. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. What about big cultural moments? St. Patrick's Day, Cinco de Mayo, May Day in my household was always a big one, where we'd make flower crowns and dance around that maple. In Holland, we celebrate King's Day or Queen's Day. What are the big cultural moments? Yes, Melissa, election night. Oh, God. Difficult to remember happy times recently, but other times, yeah, absolutely. Election night. Other big cultural celebrations. Yes, different parents' days, Alyssa. Beautiful. Mardi Gras, Courtney. Love that. And exactly as Courtney says, some of these kind of transcend between religious, cultural, you know, that they don't all fit exactly into one category. That's fine. This is just trying to stimulate our memories and our imaginations. As long as there's always good cake, that is excellent. Yes, Halloween, Lauren. I love that. I love that. Pride, absolutely. June, the month of us homos. Love that. What about sporting highlights? I love watching Wimbledon. I cut up my strawberries. I get the cream and sugar ready. It's the moment when summer is truly here. Maybe the Olympics. I love watching the Olympics opening ceremonies. Angela, Super Bowl. Yes, Julie, both of you, same idea there. Yes. I'm a big fan of English, of real football, not American football. So the beginning of the league in August usually is a big moment. March Madness, Mindy. Yes, absolutely. Oh my goodness. When I moved to America, I fell in love with my now husband. His family's from Kentucky. Go Wildcats. And I don't have a huge amount culturally in common with his family, but like I lean in heavy to March Madness. So I make sure I've got my blue face paint. I'm like watching every game. So again, these might not all be rituals that you love, but that the people you love. So you got to lean into that. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Julie says, go Gators. Oh, Burns night. For those of you with some Scottish roots, wonderful night of poetry and questionable food. The hockey season. I think we had some figure skating from Brooke. Yes. Love all of those sporting moments. And they might also be sports that you're involved with, games that you play. It doesn't just have to be fandom, things that you enjoy watching. So anything to do with sports. What about things in nature? Maybe there's a first swim in the ocean or a first surf. Maybe there's a special picnic that you have every year, or a barbecue, or a hike that you go on that you love. Maybe it's a camping trip with a loved one or kids. We would always mark the date when swallows return to the house that I grew up in. So maybe there's certain things that happen in nature, cherry blossom season. What are some of the moments in the natural world? First rains, first fireflies, yeah. Full foliage, exactly. Oh, I love that. Lauren says that my mom and I have gone camping on the same island every summer since I was 3. That's so beautiful. And this is such an invitation. Again, maybe some of us are parents, if we want to lean into thinking about rituals, we want to start with our kids or one child. Suzanne and Cape Cod. Oh, Roz, yes, elderflower foraging. My mom did that too. So delicious. Julie says that she resents pumpkin spice season coming earlier every year. I'm with you. I'm with you. But sometimes also there are certain places that we love to see, you know, multiple times a year. There's places that we go. Love that. Anything in nature. What about family traditions? Maybe especially things that involve young people, children, maybe not our own, maybe neighbors or nieces, nephews, other little ones. Or maybe it's a relationship with an older person, our elders. Moments when we retell family stories, or when we go back to places that are important in our family's history. Family jokes that are told at a certain time of year. At Easter, my uncle would tell this awful riddle about a watch that was lost between 2 brothers, and it would end with this question. And I still don't know the answer, and I think there is no right answer, but that joke was always told on Easter Sunday. Lovely. Campfires, canning season, says Caitlin, love it. Of course, a big category of food. Food usually shows up in all of these, but maybe there's certain cakes that you bake or recipes that you make at a certain time of year. Thinking about cranberry sauce, thinking about the people who these recipes remind you of. Maybe a favorite soup night. Might be the first tomatoes you pick from your garden. What are some food-based rituals that are important to you? making mince pies, matzo ball soup, latkes. Yeah, what are some of your favorite foods for certain times of year? I'm sure they're highly contested recipes between different members of the family. What about in your professional life? Are there certain conferences or moments when you come together with colleagues from near and far? Award shows. Maybe it's a gathering of people who share your vocation, who share your professional life. Are there any moments, rituals that are important there? Might be the things that happen outside the conferences with the people you enjoy and not in the place that you have to be. But anything, maybe large gatherings, denominational conventions. What are the moments when you gather with people who share professional identity? What about rituals that are place-based? The New York Marathon, Porch Fest, Honk Fest. My favorite was, and I've forgotten the name again of the town in Michigan, where they have Cereal Day, where I think Kellogg's is based there, and there's one day a year where all the cereal's free and you can have as much as you want. Battle Creek, thank you. Yes. So what are some of the quirky and fun rituals or celebrations in the place that you live? Maybe there's something your town is famous for that it celebrates. Bonfire night in Lewis, near where I grew up, is amazing. New Year's in Key West, San Antonio Fiesta, says Courtney. Yeah, great. Oh, the Revolutionary War reenactments, my goodness, yeah. The Silver Springs Zombie Walk, says Rachel. I love this. Like, there are so many random fun, like, place-based rituals. Oh my gosh. What are things in your local? Might be a neighborhood thing. It might be a street party. Might be something you want to start doing. Is something that's local, that brings together neighbors, or a building if you're in a building. Love it. County fairs, summer arts festivals. Yeah, beautiful, Lauren. What about things in your personal life? Anniversaries, birthdays, maybe reunions. What about memorials? Moments in your own life that aren't necessarily shared with others, but that you want to make sure you list down here. And not just the fact that they're happening, but what happens around them. For me, it's not a real birthday until there's a Dutch flag hanging next to my bed and there's a little secret present under my pillow. So I have to instruct my now husband very specifically what he needed to do. He was like, okay, maybe there's a special breakfast that you eat or a special song that you sing. Beautiful, Melissa. Visiting the cemetery to place stones on my grandparents' graves. Yes. Beautiful. What about special moments of TV and movie life? Maybe there's a new season coming out of your favorite show in this next year. The Crown is starting again in November. Can't wait. Maybe there are Oscars watch parties. Great British Bake Off. Yes, starts tomorrow. Exactly, Rebecca. So of course, we're thinking just about our next year here, because of course, we'll remember that a lot of the religious celebrations move through the calendar, so that they're not always going to be static in the same month. So when we create our calendar, we'll just be doing it for the next 12 months. Watching The Snowman, the animated film. Yes, John, love that. Yeah, maybe there's Christmas specials. Exactly. In the UK, that's a whole sector of TV shows. There might be also, I really appreciate, Caitlin, your comment, marking negative moments, you know, marking anniversaries of diagnoses or the ends of relationships. Not all of these, I know I've said spark joy a lot, but not all of these are going to be joyful, but it's nonetheless, I think, meaningful to mark those moments where there is sadness or loss. That's so important. Thank you for that. Oh, that's lovely, Gail. Our eldest daughter makes a yearly family photo calendar and we go through the saved ones. That's so wonderful. That's great. What about music and concerts? Rebecca and I were talking about Madonna earlier. Maybe there's a favorite artist who tours around a certain time of year, or maybe you're a music maker. There's a special concert that you go to or give or you're part of in some way, some sort of artistic celebration. Yeah. What about travel? Maybe there's certain trips that you take around a certain time of year. Maybe you're part of a biker group or a hiking group or a cycling group, whatever it is, where travel is important. Maybe pilgrimage. Of course, harder to do at the moment. Anything to do with travel. What about crafting? For so many of us, the way in which we really feel like we've entered a certain time of year is when we make certain crafts. So for me, it was folding translucent paper during Advent. Love that. Maybe you're putting cloves into oranges to make it smell nice. Maybe you're cutting pieces of paper into snowflakes. Pumpkin carving, absolutely. Pressing flowers, Nina, love that. Yeah, what are some of the crafts? Especially, again, a lovely thing to do intergenerationally. What are the crafts that you make? Purim costumes, yes. Love that. And finally, what about rituals around your health or around fitness? For me, January is always a moment when I'm restarting something, but maybe there's a race that you run, or friends of mine get together to run a Tough Mudder together every year in springtime. Maybe go whitewater rafting, something around health or fitness. Might be an anniversary of an experience of cancer, for example. Who knows? Something around your health. All right. Well, that was plenty of categories. I hope you had one or two in each of those, and I'm sure you had plenty across the board. So what I'm going to invite you to do now is to cross over onto the other side of your piece of paper, or find a new sheet or something, and create that circle. So let me share once again, just so you can see the example. Not that it has to look like this, but what we'll do is we'll draw a circle. You can label the different months, and then we'll have 6 lines going through it to create those 12 pie pieces. But you're also very welcome to create a grid if that's easier for you, whatever works, to make sure you get these kind of 12 months. And we'll be putting in the different rituals that you want to celebrate in each month. And again, some of those rituals are going to move around year to year, so just find the right month for this next year. And I'll give you just a couple of minutes, because there's probably lots that you want to fill in. So I will play a little background music to keep you company while we do that. And if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat, and I'll see you in there. how's everyone doing? I'm sure there's a lot more to write in. Do we need a couple more minutes? Let's just take a couple more minutes. And I'll continue my little music sharing. This is my favorite feature on Zoom.
Llego a Puerto, voy para Mayarín. De Alto Cedro voy para Marcané. Llego a Puerto, voy para Mayarín. De Alto Cedro voy para Marcané. Llego a Puerto, voy para Mayarín. Que te tengo, no te lo puedo negar. Se me sale la babita, yo no lo puedo evitar. Cuando Juanita y Chan Chan en el mar servían arena, como sacudí el jibe, a Chan Chan le daba pena. Limpia el camino de paz, que yo me quiero sentar en aquel tronco que veo y así no puedo llegar. Para Marcané, llego a Puerto, voy para Miami.
So I'm seeing Casey picking up on one of the things that I already wanted to talk about, which is that as you look at your ritual calendar and you start to see some months are a lot heavier with celebrations and things than others. If you're anything like me, my December always looks insane. And then February is just this kind of empty hole. And so that might be an invitation to lean into celebrating some things that you love to do, but in a slightly more ritualistic way. So I love the movie The Sound of Music, for example, and hosting a sing-along Sound of Music was one of my queer awakenings. And so I try and host a sing-along Sound of Music in February every year, which is just always a delight and something to look forward to. But it's also honestly fine if there is a season of fullness and then a season that's a little emptier. One of the gifts I think we can take from religious tradition, and I'm most familiar with the Christian calendar, is in the Episcopal Church, there's a time called ordinary time, kind of between the big festivals when things are just a bit more chill. So it's absolutely fine to have some seasons that are more full and some seasons that are a little emptier. But I'd love to hear other ideas of what you're noticing. You can use the chat to share what you're noticing in your ritual calendar. It might be that you notice a lot of things are involving many people. And then there might be an invitation for you to lean into things that are a bit more solitary, or the other way around. And again, if you're like me, looking at this calendar during COVID is very different from looking at the calendar in normal times. And so one of the things I try and lean into using the ritual calendar is to notice what's coming up and to give myself a bit more time to think about, okay, is there a way that I can celebrate this that would still be true to what the celebration is about? Because for me, it's not just the experience of this particular celebration, but again, just as Joan Chittister said, that sense of spiritual ripening, so that we, by celebrating it even in a smaller form or an online form, we're also connecting with the memories of the previous celebrations. So we're allowing ourselves to feel the joy. The way I did that with the maypole on May 1st was I got up before sunrise, as I always do, and I FaceTimed with my friend Caroline in DC, and we joined a Zoom for a maypole dance that would usually happen here in New York City. And it was one chaotic disaster of people not knowing how to unmute, lots of folk instruments everywhere. And so we lasted about 15 minutes on this Zoom call, but then I had a wonderful sunrise chat with my friend Caroline after that. So there's still ways, I think, hopefully, that we can celebrate these. Wonderful. Oh my goodness, lots of comments in the chat. Yeah, absolutely. Melissa saying it's a little depressing. We're always the ones who are making the plans and creating the things. It is exhausting. I completely feel you. And it's honestly, I think one of the real challenges for those of us who are passionate about ritual is that often we're the ones who are the responsible ones for making things happen. And we kind of long for someone else to do it for once. And I'm definitely not here to try and solve all of those questions. But one thing that I have learned is that if we can involve other people in the planning this year, then they will be much more able and confident in hosting and celebrating it next year. So trying to involve people, not just in the celebration, but in the planning of the celebration. So that's something I've tried to lean into. What else have we got here? Yes, Caitlin, I like the months where there's a balance: nature, food, family, and friends. I think having, usually 2 or 3 things a month is a good pace for me. You'll find what's right for you. But it's you've got to find your own little balance. And I think one of the ways in which we notice more about what we might want or what we not want is just to pay attention while we're celebrating it 1 year. So it's a great way to think about what's coming up. So friends, we're coming to the end of our time together, and I want to make sure that you all have the invitation to continue filling it out. And I hope you'll share what you've created. If not on social media with us, I know we'd love to see it, perhaps with other folks in your household or dear friends, colleagues, family members, so that it's a knowledge of what's shared in your ritual life. I know some folks have put it up on their fridge, maybe put it in your planner. There's all sorts of wonderful things that you can do. And thanks, Eileen. Yeah, you can always send the pictures to info@hagadok.com, where we'll be very excited to see them. And if you do want to think about this exercise in a structured way again, or if you want to share this, I have a very exciting little new Ritual Life Planner book that I'm launching this fall that I'm so excited about. And it comes with a lot of the prompts that we did today. It has a little teaching about ritual. And for me, the best bit, the most helpful bit, was the fold out calendar, so I don't have to draw that circle. So it gives you a beautiful template on which you can put the rituals. So I'll share that link if you're interested and in checking that out. And there is 20% off at the moment just before we go into production. So let me put that in the chat box. Yes, and Joanne's so right. Thank you all so much for sharing in the chat. It's so lovely to do this together and just to get a sense of what everyone else's ritual life looks like. Oh, thank you, Bethany. Thank you, Dinah. Love it. So I'm really, really glad that we had a chance to do that. And of course, my book, The Power of Ritual, is on sale as well. So please do share that if you can. And with that, let me just pass it over to Rebecca and Eileen if there's any closing words from us. And please do share what you've created, everyone. It's so lovely to see all of those. Rebecca.
Yeah, I think Eileen's actually going to close us out.
Oh, great, Eileen.
Yeah, two of us.
Thank you to Casper and to Rebecca. Rebecca was our contact to bring in Casper for this workshop, and we're just, Casper, we're such a fan of your work and the sense of joy and delight that you bring to all of this. And it's just a perfect time of year to be, thinking about the Jewish year coming ahead. And I will also say, yes, please check out Casper's book. Check out for Yom Kippur and Sukkot, check out highholidaysathome.com. And we're going to add you to our mailing list since you signed up for this webinar, and keep you up to date on other webinars that we have. And again, as promised, if you are able to donate to our work, wonderful. If not, we are just thrilled to be able to offer it all for free to you.
Eileen, let me be the person to say, if you enjoyed this, please invest in the continued hosting of workshops like this. It takes a huge amount of organizing. If we know that it takes organizing to make rituals happen, so too for the whole infrastructure of websites and communications and inviting speakers and teachers. So please, please do support Eileen, Rebecca, and that team.
Thank you. So actually, we have a ritual that we had started on our webinars in Passover, and then we altered it for the high holidays. So I think it's time we bring it back. Now, we had started to put our hands into the center, and on the count of 3, we are going to yell Shana Tova to give us the spirit we need to get into this Yom Kippur weekend and start our year off. So
get into it, everyone. Hands in the center.
All right,
Shana
so on
Tova.
the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Shana Tova. Happy New Year.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.